Yeah.
We're on.
Welcome to the April 10th, 2012 meeting of the Glendale Housing Authority. May we have a roll call, please?
Authority members: Friedman,
Here.
Manukian, Mincy,
Here.
Najarian,
Here.
Brazian,
Here.
Weaver,
Here.
Chair Quintero.
Here. May we have your report?
Certainly. The agenda for the April 10th, 2012 regular meeting of the Glendale Housing Authority was posted on Thursday, April 5th, 2012 on the bulletin board outside City Hall. Before we move on to the regularly agendized business of the Housing Authority, we do have one closed session with which we will recess. At the conclusion, at 2A is a conference with real property negotiators. Property location is 1246 South Maryland Avenue and 1251 South Glendale Avenue. Negotiations are authorized with New Horizons Family Center, Inc., Path Ventures, and the Pacific Companies. Agency negotiators attending a closed session are Scott Ochoa, Yasmin Beers, Michael Garcia, Jillian Van Meiden, Hassan Hagani, Philip Lanzafame, Peter Zovac, Mike Fortney, Jess Duran, Moises Carrillo, and Mike Grant. Instructions to negotiators will concern the price and terms for the acquisition of property from New Horizons or Path Ventures of Pacific Companies and lease to Path Ventures of Pacific Companies.
Mr. Nurse,
Go ahead.
do you anticipate reporting out on any of these items?
Mr. Chair, we do not anticipate reporting out on this item.
Okay. All right, next, please.
Mr. Chair, the next item is the approval of minutes.
So moved. Mayor Friedman was on city business, was not with us.
Second.
Okay, with that abstention, the minutes stand approved as submitted. Next, please.
Next is oral communication. Discussion is limited. Time is not part of this agenda. Each speaker is allowed 5 minutes. Members of the Housing Authority may question or respond to a speaker, but there will be no debate or decision. The matter may be referred to staff through the Executive Director for investigation and report. There was one card submitted.
Herbert Milano.
Chair Quintero, members of the Housing Authority, and staff, my name is Herbert Milano. I would like to make another appeal to you to promote and prepare an annual quality of life indicators report. The last report we had was in 2009, and the one prior to that was in 2002. I think that a quality of life report gives you significant information as to how you can direct public policy and direct the budget. And as the budget is coming forward, I think that the city needs to have one that is aligned with the finances of the city. In a study by Yale University, two studies, one between 2001 and 2003, after the 9/11 aftermath, they found that about 75% of the nation was undergoing severe stress. During that period of time, we also had an economic downturn that was quite severe. So for many individuals and for many families, this experience was, again, simulated, I guess, during 2008, 2009, after the economic collapse or near economic collapse. And it has been my interest to try to figure out how these particular stressors translate into the quality of life for many families who are not in a strong economic condition. In many areas in southern Glendale, up to 30% of the population are at or near the poverty level. And these stressors causes all kinds of repercussions: obesity, smoking, drug and alcohol abuse, divorce, increase in the number of single-parent families, latchkey kids, and overall the effect is felt throughout the community. And I think that is where cities come in. I am a registered Democrat. I believe that there is a significant role for the government to do the things that private industry cannot do. We cannot run our businesses without a proper court system. We need to have proper contracts or tort law. We need to have police, the infrastructure that makes cities run. But at the same time, we need to be careful with regard to how we use those funds that are accessible to a city and how we can promote a level of equity. Because I believe that it is much more effective for us to attend to the problems when they're small, attend to the children when they're having their problems, rather than spending the tens of thousands of dollars that eventually society has to pay for each kid that doesn't graduate from high school, that goes into the court system or into the prison system. And so when you're looking at a future budget, we have to take a look as to how that budget is going to address the problems of inequality and the problems that we can avert if we deal with these problems early on. You know, the city of Glendale has done a significant number of things. We have adequate parkland, but not everywhere in the city. We have had after-school programs, but they're not properly funded. We've had support of nonprofits, but that money is dwindling significantly because it comes from HUD. We had community gardens, which is an excellent way for kids to get engaged as well, and families to get additional, environments for them to reduce the stress. I think it's good. I don't know if we have done sufficiently enough, because the problem is that we don't have enough money. And the reason why we don't have money is because of the contracts on payroll and benefits that have occurred in 2001 and 2005. If we had taken those salaries and those benefits and just simply adjusted them for inflation, we would have had hundreds of millions of dollars available. And we only needed a small portion of that to be able to create a sustainable and socially sustainable community. And that is the thing that I've been talking about in the past. And that's why I think the Quality of Life Indicators report is necessary to give us a view as to how the community is doing as a whole. I think that there might be another way, and maybe this is one that I will address to Mr. Ochoa. If you were to buy a home, let's say in Adams Hill, and by the way, there's a terrific house out there vacant right now with a killer view, gorgeous home, but it will force you to sort of drive up either Glendale Avenue or up Chevy Chase and see the parts of Glendale that most of our council persons don't get to see on a daily basis. Because it will address the issues of, personally, of the parkland issue and how the schools work and all of the community issues. And I think that if it were still up to you and your wife to select a home, I think that finding a home in South Glendale in a nice area will be sufficient privacy, that you will get a significantly different experience than the previous city manager did by living in one of the toniest neighborhoods in the city. Thank you very much.
Next.
Next item on the business agenda at 6A is a public hearing, Director of Community Development, regarding Section 8 Public Housing Agency Annual Plan for Fiscal Year 2012-2013. At 6A, 1 is a resolution adopting plan and authorizing submission to the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development.
Mr. Ochoa.
Yes, sir. Every year, HUD requires us to adopt or to file with them a Public Housing Authority annual plan. Cindy Williams, staff analyst, will be providing that update for you.
Your name for the record, Ms. Williams.
My name is Cindy Williams, Administrative Analyst with the Community Development Department of the Housing Division. Good afternoon, Chairperson Quintero, Housing Authority members, and staff. Like Mr. Ochoa said, the Department of Housing and Urban Development requires each housing authority to submit a Section 8 public agency annual
Yes,
plan.
actually, I do need to open the public hearing, so I will do that. Public hearing is open. Go ahead, please.
Okay. And the purpose for the plan is to provide interested parties the location where they can find policies and regulations concerning the operations of the program, and to update the Department of Housing and Urban Development with any changes that the PHA is implementing. We are eligible to submit a streamlined plan. That is why it's only a 2-page report, because we are considered a high-performing agency. Staff met with the resident advisory board members for any comments that they had on the plan, and those comments will be submitted as an attachment to the plan when we submit it to the Department of HUD. So we are recommending that you adopt a resolution to submit this plan to the department. Is there any questions?
Questions or comments from the council?
I have a question.
Agency?
How many resident advisory board members we have?
We have 25 board members, and they represent elderly families, disabled families, and families. 25 members.
24.
Mhm.
Okay.
Okay, I have one card. Herbert Milano.
Housing Authority Chair Quintero, members of the Housing Authority and staff. My name is Herbert Molano. I'd like to speak briefly as a household provider to Section 8 tenants. I have a couple of them. And I'm a bit aware of some of the problems that at least the residents that I come across have with regard to their incomes and the potential changes in the Section 8 program. I read through the minutes, and I noticed that in the list of the board members, it's kind of interesting, there was only one Hispanic out of the whole group. At least there was obviously a Hispanic name. And I think that perhaps that board should have a little bit better mix. And there was also a reference with regard to the demographics. Apparently, one of the board members requested that a demographic report be given. I thought it would be a good idea to have that brought and made part of the record so that it could be discussed in the future and be easily accessible to the public. It's not available online. And the demographic report might be able to give you additional ideas as to how you do your outreach and how equitable the distribution is of Section 8 housing. There was a suggestion as well with regard to what to do with regard to those funds should they diminish in the future. And there was a suggestion, I think that has been brought here before, if I recall, that there should be if the funds are going to be reduced, then no family should be left without, meaning a small increase across the board might be more worthwhile instead of having families totally out of the assistance. This is an incredibly hard times for these families. The ones who have employment oftentimes have partial employment. Oftentimes they have children who are going to work, partially, and they are able to help sustain their families. The Glendale Unified School District has created programs in order to assist them so they can go to school and get a chance to work. And that's another of the reasons why I think that tying in information about Section 8 housing, the demographics report, and the quality of life report will give you a better assessment of how it is that we're doing for the families that are significantly in need. Thank you very much.
Any comments or questions from the authority? Do I have a motion?
Move 6A,
I'll close the public hearing.
move 6A1.
Second.
Roll call.
Authority members: Friedman,
Yes.
Manukian, Mincy,
Yes.
Najarian,
Yes.
Razian,
Yes.
Weaver,
Aye.
Chair Quintero.
Yes. Next, please.
Next is any authority member or staff comments.
I hear none.
Is there a motion?
I have a quick comment.
Yep.
I read in the LA Times today, I think it was today, it may have been yesterday, and I haven't asked the staff yet for clarification, but there was an article about the LA Board of Supervisors initiating a new program that would allow a certain number of prisoners coming out of state prison to be able to jump the Section 8 line and basically displace residents that have been on that line for possibly for many, many years to be guaranteed Section 8 housing. And if that's indeed the case, and I read the article correctly, I just want to go on record as registering my disgust at that while I think certainly we have a housing problem, I don't understand the rationale for giving felons that are coming out of prison, giving them priority over people who have not gotten in trouble and have been working their lives and waiting a long time for this housing, because that would mean that, that however many of those prisoners get the Section 8 housing, that our residents wouldn't be getting the housing. So I think that in trying to solve one problem, they've created and disadvantaged a whole other group of people, created another problem and disadvantaged a group of people who are really more deserving of this housing. So I just wanted to go on record saying that, and at some point maybe our staff can give us an understanding of how that's going to impact the Glendale Section 8 housing program. I don't know, Peter, if you want to say a few words now, or because it's not agendized, maybe that's not appropriate, I'm not sure.
Yeah, he can make a brief statement in response, and we'll follow up with additional information if necessary.
Mayor Friedman, if you're commenting on the article in the California section of the LA Times with regards to LA County, we did see that article as well. Staff's analysis of it is that the county was updating their PHA annual plan, as you just did. And what they were doing is that they have a special allocation of vouchers that are dedicated towards homeless clients. that they then award to different nonprofits out in the LA County community who deal with that clientele. And apparently, they had a feeling that the restrictions they have with regards to criminal background screenings in terms of the types of crimes that in which you're prohibited from applying to enrolling into the program, and the length of time that you've had that criminal activity has been a barrier with regards to placing those clients. So they've adjusted those requirements for that particular population, for that small allocation of vouchers that they have for that population. We do not have that program.
Okay,
Or that allocation.
I'm glad to hear it, and yet we're still in LA County, that funding still affects us. And the way that I read it said that those people would actually jump the line. So they would go, it wasn't just that they'd be able to go onto that list at the end of the list, that they would actually, and it said very clearly in the LA Times article that they would jump the line ahead of people that didn't have criminal backgrounds. So I'm glad to hear that it's not affecting Glendale, but we're still in LA County, and I still think that it's something that the Board of Supervisors should have given more thought to.
Yeah, I read the same article, and it did appear, as Friedman mentioned, but I did note, I guess, within the Homeless Act, within the homeless category, that would be where the ex-offenders would perhaps jump to the head of the line.
Correct. And just to put your mind at ease, there is a single quote in there that says, but they jump to the line only up to the 510 vouchers that are designated for that program, not for the remaining vouchers, of which I believe they've got in excess of 20,000, if I'm not mistaken.
But basically, still, there are homeless people that haven't committed any crimes and have lost
Correct.
apartments, homes, etc. Okay, next, anything else? Motion to adjourn.
But we must recess, actually.
Recess to closed session. We are recessed.